Greetings, booktubers. Welcome back to Grammaticus Books. Welcome back to the top 5 science fiction movies of all time based upon a novel, Part Deux. So on Monday, I put up Part 1, which was the top 5 novels. But when I originally shot that video, when I started shooting it, it was going to be the top 10. But when I started filming it, I quickly realized that if I was going to do top 10, that the video was going to run well over an hour in length. And nobody wants to listen to Grammaticus prattle on for over an hour. So I chopped it down to the top 5 and put that one up. And when I put that video up, it generated an enormous amount of comments in the comments section, far more than usual. And in addition to the comments, it actually also generated at least 2 response videos. One from Steve Donoghue and one from Scott over at Bookish Bryant. And I'll talk about those at the end of the video. But I had so much fun making that video, making the top 5 video, and I had this work done for the other ones on the list for a top 10, numbers 10 through 6, that I thought I'd go ahead and put 10 through 6 up here today and have some fun with it, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. So what is number 10? What is the 10th best science fiction movie of all time based upon a science fiction novel? And it is Dune, the 2021 version, directed by Villeneuve, starring Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya, Josh Brolin, Stellan Skarsgård, Jason Momoa. Who else is in this? It's got a bunch of people. Did I say Josh Brolin? Javier Bardem. It's just got an all-star cast. And Villeneuve does an absolutely solid production of Dune. Dune, of course, based on the novel by Frank Herbert, the epic novel by Frank Herbert. And I just noticed this paperback edition, on the back of it, actually has screenshots from the 1984 David Lynch version, which I put in at number 5, which I know was a bit controversial, but that's got those 85 or 84 shots there of David Lynch's version there of Dune. But this is just an excellent and faithful reproduction of Dune. And the reason I've got it at 10 and I don't have it much higher than that is because I don't consider it complete yet, because that is only part 1 of the novel, and they're releasing part 2 in March of this year. And once part 2 comes out and I can see them together and look at it as a whole, if Villeneuve is able to maintain the standards in part 2, that may rocket this movie well up on my list from 10 to much higher. So we'll see how that one goes. Also, if you haven't seen this, it's going to be difficult now. The best way to see this is on the big screen. The effects on here are tremendous. And he really knows that when he's making it for the big screen. And the desert shots really have an impact if you see it on a big screen. So that is number 10. So what's number 9? Number 9 is the 1960 version of The Time Machine, starring Rod Taylor, but based upon the 1895 novel by H.G. Wells of the same name, The Time Machine. So 1895, H.G. Wells writes The Time Machine, and no, this is not a young adult abridged version. This is an unabridged version of The Time Machine. It's that thin. It's only 124 pages. H.G. Wells writes a novel. It's about time travel with the time traveler. He never names the character, the main character. He's known only as the time traveler, which I think is a really good literary device that he uses. And he sends him 800,000 years into the future, where humanity has divided into 2, with the Eloys and the Morlocks. And it's social commentary on class divide in society. But the 1960 movie, it's a very faithful adaptation. It's a big budget adaptation that was very successful. It starred Rod Taylor, and it won an Academy Award. And it won an Academy Award for Best Special Effects, because the time travel sequences that they put into the movie with stop motion photography were very effective. It was really good. It was ahead of its time, and it really stood out. And then on top of that, they created just this classic full-scale prop of the time machine that has just become a cultural icon. And for that reason, I bring it in at number 9. So that's it, the time traveler, or the time machine, pardon me, at number 9. So what's number 8? Number 8 is Metropolis. Metropolis, the silent German film from 1927, directed by Fritz Lang, based off of the book by the same name that was written by Thea von Harbo. Now, originally, they had planned to release the book and the movie at the same time in 1925, but Fritz Lang took so long producing the movie Metropolis that it wound up having that big gap in between them. And the reason that it's here at number 8 on my list is because it's a historic film. It's literally a historic film. It is the first full-length science fiction movie that was ever made. And on top of that, I mean, that alone would be enough to get it on the list. But on top of that, the visuals that Fritz Lang created, especially for his cityscapes and his interior decorations, his interior sets, were just visually wonderful. He came up with this blend of Art Deco and far New Age science fiction architecture that was really unique for the time, and created these fantastic visuals that had a tremendous influence in cinematography and films right up to present day. And in fact, number 2 on my list from my first video that I did on Monday is Blade Runner. And Blade Runner borrowed heavily from Metropolis when it was doing their cityscapes. The Tyrell Corporation and a lot of those cityscape scenes around the Tyrell Corporation are lifted directly out of Metropolis. Metropolis has had that big an influence on imagery and cinema for science fiction. And for that reason, it well deserves to come in at number 8 on the list. So that gets us to number 7. What is number 7? Number 7 is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, 1954 Disney production. This is back when Walt Disney still knew how to make a good movie, which apparently they've forgotten completely how to make movies these days. But back in 1954, they could still put together a good, well-driven, well-acted, well-written movie. And this one certainly was. It stars James Mason and Kirk Douglas. James Mason is in the title role of Captain Nemo, and Kirk Douglas is the everyman protagonist in the movie. And of course, it's based off of the famous book by Jules Verne, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, written in 1871, which is an ecology and anti-military book by Jules Verne. The movie is very solid. It's got a big budget. It was wildly successful. James Mason turns in just a great performance as Captain Nemo. He sort of defines that role, and Kirk Douglas does a good job as your everyman hero in it. But despite those 2 big name actors in it, the real star of that movie was in fact the Nautilus. The full-scale prop that Disney came up with, and then the smaller prop that came up for the far distance underwater shots, the whole underwater sequences. The Nautilus became such a star and such a beautiful machine in the movie that it actually took on a personality of its own and became a character in the movie that overshadowed James Mason and Kirk Douglas. The interior of the submarine was this blend of Victorian decoration and steampunk that was just wonderful to look at. And when it gets sunk at the end of the movie, you can feel James Mason's pain as Captain Nemo as he watches this submarine sink as it's being destroyed by the military forces that he so hated. And it's a great book, and it's a great movie adaptation of it. And for that reason, it does come in there at number 7. So that leaves us with number 6. What could number 6 be? Number 6 is Ender's Game. Ender's Game, the movie, which came out in 2013. Let me check my notes really quick on that. I'm right, it is 2013. And this was a really good movie. It was a really solid movie. This actually made Steve Donoghue's list as well, one of his top movies, and I can't argue with that at all. It, of course, is based on the classic science fiction book, Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. This is a wonderful novel. This is a wonderful military science fiction novel. If you haven't read it, you should. It's about a war between humanity and an alien race in the far future, with our very survival at stake. And in order to try to defeat the aliens, they gather up a group of very talented children, and they place these children into a elite military academy to train them as a secret weapon against the aliens. And so you've got the military aspect of it, but then also running parallel to that, you have this story, this sort of a Lord of the Flies story going about what this intense Spartan Donoghue style training academy is doing to these kids and how it's affecting them emotionally and physically. And it's an absolutely wonderful story. It's terrific. It's one of the best science fiction novels ever written. It's up there with just about anything. If you haven't read it, you should really check it out. And the movie adaptation, it didn't get panned by the critics, but it had a lot of mixed reviews. It didn't do well in the box office, but it's a really good movie. It's well acted, it's well directed, the scenes are well done, the science fiction special effects are very well done. It's a great interpretation of the book. If it has one flaw, I would say that they miscast Ben Kingsley as Razor Mackham. I think that's the name of the character. they cast Ben Kingsley as this Maori warrior officer, and he's just horribly miscast. Ben Kingsley, he's a terrific actor. I'm pretty sure he's an Academy Award-winning actor, but this was not the role to cast him in. Fortunately, his part in the movie is rather minor, and it doesn't detract enough from it. And for that reason, it made it onto my list at number 6. It almost cracked my top 5. It got edged out by David Lynch's 1984 version of Dune, which is just a roller coaster of dumpster fire brilliance, anyway, that's Ender's Game at number 6. So that's my 10 through 6. I do have one honorable mention, and that honorable mention is Heavy Metal, the motion picture. This is the DVD of it. I saw this in the movie theater. I saw this at a drive-in movie theater. It's a wonderful film. It's got a ton of art in it that's inspired by Richard Corbin and Mobius. And of course, it's based off of a number of different stories that ran through the magazine Heavy Metal. So I'm going to do that as an honorable mention. I couldn't quite bring myself to put it into the top 10, but I do love that movie. It's got a lot of great different stories running through it. And another one that I need to put out there is one that appeared in the comments section on my Monday's video. And again, I'll link that one down below so you can check it out too. But one movie came up over and over in my comments section, and it actually came up in the comments section on Steve Donoghue's channel as well. So I felt that I really needed to kind of bring it out. VintageSF on his channel, he commented on it, and a couple other viewers commented. And that is Enemy Mine, which I want to say is 1985, where Enemy Mine was released. And it's a science fiction military movie based on a novella of the same name. It starred Lou Gossett Jr. as an alien, and Dennis Quaid, I'm pretty sure it was Dennis Quaid. I did see that one in the movie theater, and I have not read the novella though. And it was good. It was a good, solid movie. It's sort of along the same lines as that Star Trek episode, the old school Star Trek episode, where Captain Kirk and the Romulan are in this duel, and they're trying to figure out how to defeat each other. And as they're fighting against each other, they slowly come to realize and respect each other, and realize that they're both, worthwhile people who have been thrown into this militaristic situation that otherwise they wouldn't want to be in. And actually, that Star Trek episode was based off of a World War II movie about a German U-boat commander and a U.S. Navy destroyer. But I thought I should mention that because it got so many comments in the comments section, and that's Enemy Mine. So those are my 10 through 6 added on here. And then Steve Donoghue did a response video, and then Scott over at the Bookish Bryants did a response video. I'll link both of their great videos down below. I'm not going to go through their picks in detail. I don't want to steal their thunder. I'll encourage you to go watch their videos. They're a lot of fun. They're very entertaining. So with Steve picked his 5, and his 5 were completely different from mine. I'll say this about Steve. Steve went through mine in a lot of detail. He took some shots at some of my movies, and some of his shots scored. He got in some body blows. I definitely have some cinematically bruised ribs today from Steve's body shots that he took at me. But Steve picked a lot of great movies. He got some good ones in there. He had 4 really solid picks. He did have one that I'm not going to call it a stinker. Well, one of his picks was, we'll call it mediocre. It was mediocre at best. It certainly didn't deserve to be on a top 10 list. It was a mediocre movie by a really bad director. But his other 4 are very solid. They were really great picks. I can't argue with any of them. And in fact, like I already mentioned, that he has Ender's Game in there, which is a fantastic one. His number 1 pick was Jurassic Park, and that is just a brilliant pick. I couldn't believe when he put it up there, it was literally a head slap moment for me. I was like, how did I miss Jurassic Park? I mean, it's absolutely a brilliant movie. It's a great pick of his. And what I went back and I thought about it, because this really bothered me. I was like, how did I miss Jurassic Park? And what I think happened is, when I went through, I considered Jurassic Park for a hot second, and then I dismissed it. And the reason I dismissed it is I don't think I considered it science fiction. And it really is. I mean, it is legitimately a science fiction novel. It's using technology essentially in order to time travel back in the time of the dinosaurs and put a group of people, you know, back in the Jurassic area. Actually, I think it's what the Triassic is where most of those dinosaurs existed. But they put them on the park, was essentially just time traveling to the dinosaurs. Then you have a bunch of subplots running under it. And it's brilliant, directed by Steven Spielberg. It's a fantastic movie. You talk to paleontologists and they'll tell you, if you want to see what a dinosaur looked like and how they moved and how they interacted, watch Jurassic Park. It's just a phenomenal flick, a very wonderful film, and an excellent pick by Steve Donoghue for his #1. Well done, sir. And then Scott over at Bookish Bryant's, he did his 5. And quite a few of Scott's actually lined up with a couple of my picks. And his #1 was actually my #4. And his #1 was the 1982 John Carpenter's The Thing, the famous classic sci-fi horror flick, which is just phenomenal. And I go through mine in detail on my video from Monday. And he goes into his quite a bit with in detail of his, obviously, because it's his #1 pick. And that's a fantastic pick as well. I really like that movie a lot. Obviously, it made it onto my top 5, and they were at #4. So I wanted to make sure I shouted out to Scott over there at Bookish Bryant's and put a link to his video down there, as well as Steve Donoghue's. Go down to check out their videos. You won't be disappointed. But that's it. I'm having trouble with my voice this week. I start getting hoarse, and it starts getting difficult to talk. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. And this is Grammaticus saying take care, be safe, and I'll catch you guys in the future.